Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to continue with our creation of this drawing. Now if you remember where we left off is we created all the parts and we put them in an assembly. In this video what I plan on showing you is that we're going to be using a presentation file in the drawing portion of Inventor to create this exploded assembly as well as creating a movie and this drawing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and switch over to Inventor and continue where we left off. Okay, so what you want to do first is make sure that you have this file saved. And before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and change the color. I don't think this white plays too well with some of this other stuff. So we're going to come up here to the File button. And then we're going to select Options. Looks like I'm clicking too fast for it. There we go. I'm going to select Options. I'm waiting on that dialog box to appear. Underneath the Colors tab. And then let's see, let's try the high contrast one. That has a nice black background. And these colors here tells you basically your selections and things of that nature. And these are colors that you're going to see on your actual object, right? And if it looks at drafting it's not going to change, but let's go ahead and hit the OK button. Give it a second and the background should change over. All right, once again, make sure you have this saved. The next step we're going to do is go to the New tab. We're underneath the metric one still. And now we're going to go ahead and create a presentation file. It's all the way here at the bottom of this dialog box. So scroll down. I'm going to use a standard millimeter IPN. That IPN is Inventor presentation file. And let's go ahead and hit create. All right. We're going to give Inventor a couple of seconds here. And while we wait on that, if you're new to the channel or if you enjoy this content, please feel free to leave me a comment or like and subscribe on these videos. I know that's what typically everyone says when they're watching a YouTube video. But so what we have here now is that Inventor is trying to open up what assembly file that I want to use. And I have a couple of them here. The one that we're going to be taking a look at is going to be the valve one. So that's the one that I saved before. If you look down here on the bottom on my command line, you can see the valve.iam. So that's the one I want to use. I'm going to hit the open button. And it should bring it in. Now, yours may not have the storyboard open like mine do. So let me go ahead and close this down a little bit. And so when you first open it up, it could look something similar to this, right? Just remember that this is the storyboard at the bottom. And all I'm going to do here is left click and drag this up a little bit. And it's just going to make the storyboard just a little bit smaller. Now, the first thing I like to do is I like to get my view set up to the way I like it. So if this is the orientation that I want, or it might be this orientation. So the first thing I do here is I hit the save button. And then we're going to save this IPN file, right? It's going to be valve since we're working on a valve and it has a different file extension at the end. So I'll go ahead and hit save here. And now I save this IPN file. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is create an exploded assembly out of this. And I'm just going to zoom out of this a little bit. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to start moving some of these components, right? In Inventor, the way we move these components is we go to Tweak Components. You select the component that you want to move or manipulate. And I'm going to select the move icon here. You got move and rotate, right? So I'm going to move. I'm going to left click and drag on this arrow. And then I'm going to pull it up. Now, as I pull this up and I let it go, you're going to see that there's a value that come here. So if you want to get a little bit more precise with it, you can put in a value here. So if I type in 360, you'll see that it will move up 360 millimeters, right? I'll do the next one. So I'm just going to use the tweak components. I'll select the actual valve here. I'm going to left click and drag on the valve. Once I kind of stop here, it looks like around 250 would be good for this one. So I'm going to go up to 250. I'm going to grab this spring, tweak components. So you can see you can select the object first or you can do it in the opposite order. Left click and drag on the arrow. Let's go ahead and move this up. Let's call it 120. And you can move multiple components as well. I'm just doing it one at a time since I just want these separated. And now for this last one, instead of moving the washer in the middle, I'm going to move this actual body here. So I'm just going to tweak components, select here, left click and hold, and just drag this down. Give it a stop for a second, and that looks like a negative, let's call it 180. So negative 180. Okay, so now I have all of these components separated, right? And if you look down here on my storybook, let's go ahead and move this up a little bit. You'll see that I have all of these components here, and then I have each one of these tweaks here located with it. So when I hit the play button, you're going to see that as it's going across, it's playing each one of these components as they're moving. Okay? Now, we can also combine some of these, right? So if I want two of these objects to move at the same time, for example, and then we go ahead and set it back. If I want the body nut and the valve to move at the same time, I can drag this part over to here, and then I can scoot this down a little bit. And we can kind of play with these a little bit, right? And then we can see how this looks, right? So let's go ahead and hit the play button, and you'll see that now things are moving at the same time, right? It just depends on how you want to kind of set up the view of this. If I want them all to start at the same time, and this, might be beneficial on this one, is that when we look at this one play, let's zoom in a little bit more, you'll see that everything just kind of expands out at the same time, right? And that might be kind of what you want to do in the outcome or the end of this. But the more important goal here is to set up your exploded assembly view. Okay? Now, you can do some other things here as well. So you can see that I have the picture set to this orientation. And if I come kind of back here on my storybook, and then if I hit the capture, it's going to capture a picture here, right? So at this point, it's going to say, hey, your story looks like this. And then let's go ahead and change it to here. Let's move up a little bit further at this point. And then I'm going to capture another picture. All right, so I have two pictures going on here. Let's go ahead and reset this, and then I'll play this. So you're going to see that it's going to jump back into that orientation, and then it's going to kind of do it. And I know I don't have this spaced out enough, and it did it kind of fast, so I might just respace this out. Okay, and I think that's a good idea. So let's go ahead and drag this component out a little bit. Let's make them stop maybe halfway. Let's do this one, and then this one. And then we can space these out a little bit more so you can kind of see a lot more of the show what's happening. Okay. Let's reset this, and then let's see how it looks. So you can see that it hits that camera view, and then it's going to hit the other one. And it looks like this camera view actually was not the one that it needed to be. Let's go ahead and delete this camera view. And I just selected and right click on it. Let's go here. Let's rotate it around to here. And then I want to add that camera view. Okay. And now let's see how it looks. So we have the first one where it rotates around, and there it is. Okay. So now you can see that I do have these different views and things of that nature. I can actually stretch this one out just a little bit longer too, so it takes a little bit more time. And what this does is kind of one of those things that'll automatically set your view up. So no matter which view you're in, if I'm in the top view and I hit the play button, you're going to see because of this first camera angle, it's going to automatically rotate it back around to where I need it to go. Then it'll start doing these, and then it'll spin to here. Okay? So it's kind of a quick other thing. And one more step that I want to show you here is that I can also add another function to this. If I go back to tweak components and I select this top body nut here, I'm going to go to rotate, and then I'm going to add a rotational spin to this, right? So I'm going to spin it around, let's see, 3 times. And once I stop here, you can see that it's just calculating those rotations. Left click and hold and rotate it around. All right, so that looks good to me. Hit the check mark here. You can see down here on my storybook is that now I have 2 other components, right? So I have the body nut, and if I expand that, I have a rotation. So these 2 are together. If you want those to be 2 separate functions or do kind of independent of each other, you see I can space this out a little bit. So if I come back, I can have this go up, and then it's going to start rotating as it goes up. Of course, you don't want it to do that. So I can combine this back just by sliding this over to this direction, and then you're going to see this spin at the same time as it's going up. Okay, so it's just kind of depending on how you want your storybook to look. Another kind of feature of this presentation file is that we can select different views to bring in a drawing, right? So for example, I have this isometric here, and then I can go ahead and make a snapshot of it. So there's a first snapshot of it. Maybe I want another isometric looking this direction, and I can create a snapshot of this one as well. So these two snapshots now I can use inside of the drawing, right? These two views. I can also expand this out. Let's take a look at the isometric of this one. Let's go ahead and create that snapshot. And then give it one more snapshot here. And all I'm doing is just taking pictures. So I have all four of these views. I can also rename these if you want. You have those options. You can delete them and things of that nature. Okay. If you wanted to adjust some of these numbers in here, they're going to be located underneath the scene here. So you can expand this, and then you got tweaks. And then these are all of the values that I typed in. If you want to see a little bit more, if I expand each one of these tweaks, you'll see that the component that it applies to. So for example, if I didn't know which one that I moved the body nut up, you can go find it here, and then I can just select here, and then I can change that number, right? So all of these can be manipulated. You don't have to stick with whatever the first number that you do have. All right, let's go ahead and make a movie out of this thing. And it's really super easy in this program. All you have to do is hit the video file. And then inside of here, you got to give it some information. So depending on what size you want it or how you want the storybook to play, that's what this first kind of thing is telling us here, right? So do we want it to be this current storybook? And you can see up here at the top, we can make more storybooks depending on how we want. We can make another one just by hitting this plus here at the bottom. But we can create as many storybooks as we want, right? The rest of this stuff is kind of, you know, basic, I guess, video editing. If you want to increase the frame per second, so if you want to slow it down, you can get better quality and things of that nature with it. So if you can give you more frames per second, then it's going to be, I guess, more resolution to it. But remember, that file is going to get bigger and bigger. Here's the location where you want to send it. And then you can either have it as a WAV file or you can have it as an AVI file, right? Those are your only two choices, right? So if I wanted to make a WAV file, and let's go ahead and put this in the same location, and it's going to be named Storybook 1. If I hit the OK button, you're going to see it play, and it's just going right through my storybook. You can see the process here. And I know it's taking a little bit, but remember that if you increase that frame per second, this is going to get that much longer because it's going to calculate all of those. Now you see that the publish is complete. Let me go ahead and open that file for you, and I'll show you how that movie looks. Okay, so here we have it set up and ready to open in VLC. Just going to hit the play button here, and you can see that that's how it's going to happen. So exactly how we had it played out, it's going to kind of play that way. All right, so that's just a quick WAV file or however you want to create this thing using Inventor. Okay, so once you're done with this, I always like to put mine back in an isometric view here. You can reset it or you can leave it expanded. And then from here, let's go ahead and just hit the save icon here. It's automatically saved, and we already have that done. Now we can jump over to our last portion here, which is creating a drawing, right? So all we want to do is create a normal B-size drawing. We'll put a parts list on this thing, and then we'll put these two views on. Let's go to the new icon. We're going to find the standard millimeter IDW, right? So I'm using the ANSI millimeter IDW here. I'll hit the create button. Give it a couple of seconds here and it should switch over. All right, so once it loads up, let's go ahead and delete this title block here. So I'm just going to right click on the ANSI large here and then delete this. And then let's go ahead and make this a B-size drawing. Remember that we find our sheet 1, do a right click on it, go to edit sheet, and make it a B-size. Okay. All right, so from here, let's go ahead and start creating our views. We're going to choose the base option here. And once that loads up, we have a few different options of what we're going to choose, right? So right now, it's assuming that I want to use this IPN, right? So I can use the IPN. Remember, we have multiple views here that we created. And depending on which view that you want to show this in, we can choose from that selection, right? So I'm going to use this view 3 here, We can also make this bigger or smaller. Remember, we can drag this out, and this looks like it's too big. Let's go a little bit too small. So let's find a number that's right in between them. And let's see, we have 1/4 of an inch. Let's make it 3-8. Let's see if that is too big. All right. So I have 3/8. Let's go ahead and drag this to the side here. And you can see I have all of these components on there, right? What about an assembled one, right? So we just simply come back to the base view. I'm looking in my IPN. Now for the assembled, we have two choices here. We can use the IPN or we can use the IAM file. Both of these are going to act exactly the same, right? I can manipulate it here with the view cube, but if you want to choose the IPN file, I can just use whatever view I want, right? And I can still manipulate it with using the view cube here. Either one will work fine. Let's kind of stretch this out and make it a little bit bigger as well. Look like 1/2 inch is fine, so 0.5 is fine. Let's go ahead and drag this over. Hit the OK button. Okay, and that kind of looks a little bit too small for me. Let me double click on this one more time, and let's make it maybe 3/4. So let's make that number 3 divided by 4. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay, so now we have this part done. All right, let's go ahead and put in a parts list. Really easy in this program. Let's jump over to the annotation. And then we're going to go find our parts list, which is located here. What it's asking me to do is go ahead and select the view. So I'm going to select this view, and it should automatically pick up this. Let's go ahead and hit the OK button. And it should say it's a reference assembly. That's okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and put it right down here at the corner. All right. So when working with this, and you can see all the names are correct, because remember that we did this part when we was dealing with this, when we created the assembly, we went and took a look at the BOM. And if I jump back to that IAM file, this is what I'm referring to, is that we had a BOM option, waiting on to switch over, waiting on Inventor, and there's the bill of material. So whatever you put into that is what's going to show in the drawing portion. If I come back to the drawing here, and I'll give you an apology. My computer seems to be running a little bit slow today, but come on. Okay. That's all the information here. We can go ahead and change some of this as well. So I'm just going to double click on here. And then depending on how you want this to look, you have some options here that you can go ahead and change. Let's take a look at the table layout, right? So we have our parts list, and that's just the name of it. Do we want to rotate it and have that heading at the bottom? Or we don't want one at all? So let's go ahead and use it at the bottom. How do we want our numbers to go from the top down? Well, we're going to send them from the bottom up. And then, let's see, what else do we need here? I think this is about everything else that we need. Everything else can be manipulated. Let's go ahead and hit the OK button. Now, this is not going to change, but if I hit the OK button, or the apply button in this case, I want to keep it open, you're going to see that everything is reversed, right? Let's put it in a little bit more information here. We do have a column chooser. So if I click here, you'll notice that I have a description here. I can select this and remove that. So now I don't have to worry about a description anymore. Or we can put that description back by adding it. And then we can have the same information in the description that's in that. And that's going to make us be able to get rid of the item. Or let's see, I can't remember what I have here. I'm sorry, I got so much stuff. Oh, parts number. That's the one I want to get rid of. So if I get rid of the one that says parts number, and I'm going to remove this, and I know it's going to look a little weird here in a second. I'm going to hit OK. And then I'll hit the OK button here. It's going to get rid of it, right? And now you can see that that description is gone. Well, I actually need a description in there. So we have a few different options here. If I select my parts list and do a right click, I also have that bill of material option here in the right click, so I can select that. The bill of material should open, and now underneath the description, I can double click in here and start typing in all of the stuff that I did before. You can also copy and paste. So I can select here, select this part here, do a Control C, come over to the description, double click in there, and do a Control V. So whichever way you feel comfortable doing this, that's totally up to you, right? So I can come here and I can go to Spring. And the other thing about it is that this is actually updating those parts files. So those parts files that we created there in the beginning, this is actually updating that. Okay, if I hit the done button here, you'll see that those values will come in the side of here. All right, let me go back to here. I'm just going to double click on this. And so that was our column chooser. So we have it set up to where we have the item first, and that's going to be our item number. The next thing I want is my description, so I'm just going to move this one up since I want that to be next, and then I have the quality. No, I mean the quantity. Hit OK, hit the apply button. If I move this to the side, you're going to see that this does, in fact, adjust and change this the way we like it. We can also kind of change this up a little bit inside of here as well. I can right click on here, and then I should be able to edit this column by going to Format, Column. It's going to give me this, so if I want that to say something like item number, I can make it say item number, and then I can tell it, hey, keep it all centered. If I hit the OK button here and hit apply, you're going to see that it did update it here, right? Let's go ahead and close this. And now we have a parts list here, right? We can kind of adjust these and do kind of some other things if we want, or just kind of make this thing a little bit bigger. Then let's go ahead and come back in here really quick. And I think I want everything to be middle center. So I can select it, go to here, table layout. And there was one place where I know, and I'm trying not to have to do this individual, but I think I might have to. Yep, I am. So I'll have to go to each column by selecting the column, do a right click on it, go to Format, and then choose these two. Okay. And let's see if it's going to actually do it for all of them. There we go. And the last column, let's go ahead and make that one as well. Okay. All right. I think I need to bring them down in the center as well. Okay. And I just now realized that I actually misspelled this. Let me go ahead and fix that by selecting this parts list, do a right click and go to Bill of Material. And I don't know why I did that again, but let's see. This is VALVE. And then here at the bottom, let's see, I have the washer, I have the valve, spring, body nut. It's one more that I'm missing. Okay. And this is valve body. Okay. All right, when I hit the done button, that should update. Okay. And I do have one other thing. So I want to middle center these. These are going to be located underneath the style function. So you're going to have to click on this manage tab. Go to the style editor. And once again, this is going to depend on how fast your computer is or how slow it is. But you're going to be waiting on a dialog box. So be a little patient when Inventor. But what we need to know is that these are these text. And I'll show you where you can go find out what text style that they are underneath. But these are underneath a certain one, and then we got to go and adjust it inside of there, right? So let's go ahead and give Inventor a couple of more seconds to load up. So once it does, you're going to be inside of this dialog box. You're going to come down and expand the one that says text, and you're going to be looking for the note text, right? Let's go ahead and change our justification to middle justify for both of these note texts. I'm going to hit yes on that one. Go ahead and change this one to yes. And then do a save and close. And I hope that that updates the parts list. That's probably the only place that I can find it. Let's go and take a look inside of this again. I'm sorry, let's double click on the word parts list. And underneath here, I think I'll go underneath the table layout. And it should tell you that this is all underneath the ANSI note text, right? All right. So I'm going to hit the apply button and see if that updates it. And it don't look like it did. So I'm just going to have to dig around and see that here in a little bit. But let me show you one other neat thing here. So to put these balloons on side of here, I'm going to jump back to the annotate tab. Actually, they're going to be underneath the, should be underneath the annotate tab. And then we're going to find balloons. Let's go ahead and expand this. And then let's choose the auto balloons, right? We can do them single, and I'll show you how to do it single first, and then I'm going to show you the auto balloons. So we go to balloon, and then if I left click and drag on this part, and then I click here, hit the enter button, it automatically knows that's item number 5, which is the body nut, right? Now, that's one thing you can do, and you can do this for all 5 of them, and we just have 5 parts. But if we had a lot of parts, you can use the auto balloon, which will create it a lot faster. But let's go to auto balloon, and I'll show you what this dialog box looks like. And the way you're going to kind of follow this around is just go to select that view, right? So that one is already taken care of. Then it says add or remove components. So what you do is put a window around all the components that you want this to balloon, right? It's saying ignore multiple instances. So that's why when I put a balloon around this one, it didn't turn green, right? Okay. The next thing is the placement. So I'm just going to tell it, hey, go all around. And then I'm going to select this icon where it says select placement. And then you can see when I move my cursor around, you see these little circle balloons with the X's on them. Those are going to be the actual balloons, right? So I'm going to say, yeah, that looks good. I'm doing left click. And this is where it drives you crazy because the balloons, they're never really where you need them. But I'm going to hit the OK button. And it's going to place them there. Now you can left click and drag these and move them around. So it's just one quick way of having everything ballooned. But you still have to do a little bit of editing to move them around. But the neat feature is that they're going to automatically be assigned to each one of those items, right? All right. So for the last thing I can do here is I'm just going to double click on this view. And then I'm going to add the view label here. So I'm just going to select it here. And then we're going to figure out what to name the view, right? So underneath the view identifier, I'm just going to call this assembly view. If I hit the OK button, it should put that label underneath it, and it does have the scale here. If you don't want the scale to show up, I'm going to go back and double click on these words here. It's going to bring it open in this box. So from here, I can select here, underlined, and then I can delete the word scale from underneath it. Hit OK, and then you can see that it's that way. We can also increase the size of this, right? I can do the exact same thing on this one as well. So I'm just going to double click it. I'm going to tell it, hey, bring me the view. Call this one the exploded assembly view. Here's the scale underneath. I can hit the OK. If you do want to leave that scale underneath, this is what I recommend. I will double click, and in this one I will leave the scale under it. I'm going to highlight the top, tell it to underline, and then here on the bottom one, I'm going to highlight this one, and then I'm going to decrease the scale, right? So let's go ahead and make it to 2.5, and let's see what that looks like. Hit the OK button, and you can see that it says scale blah, 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 blah. All right, we can kind of pretty that up a little bit, but for what we need to do, that's fine on this one. So just kind of figure out which way you want it to look. Let me go ahead and zoom extents. I'm just double clicking, and let me see if I can figure out what's going on with this text. Alright, and so for some strange reason, I don't know if I can get this to go ahead and center like I really want it to. And let's see if it's going to let me or allow me to kind of customize some of this other stuff. Yeah. So it seems like it's working with the parts list as well as the description. And let's go ahead and put this back. But when I try to adjust it with each one of these individual rows, seems like it wants to stick toward the top. Okay, but anyway, I guess I can kind of collapse these to kind of hide while it's not. And then let's see if I can try this other nice little trick I have up my sleeve. So as I have this all situated, let's go here. And can I update the width? I hit the escape button here. And let's see if I select them all. And now I'm holding down the control button to select multiple. And I know there's a row width somewhere. And I don't want to have to do this individually. Oh, it's actually, no, that's all the column widths. So I was just trying to look and see if there's a way where I can format the rows. But anyway, okay. But for what we need, yeah, we'll play with that a little bit more as we create some more drawings, right? And I'm sorry I keep messing with this. Okay. But overall, hopefully you enjoyed this, and this was kind of informative on how to make a movie of it, a presentation, exploded assembly. And another thing while I'm sitting here thinking about it, these lines going through here, you can either turn these on or off. And I forgot to show you that, but if I double click on this view here, those are the trails, right? It just says, hey, do you want those trails to be shown? And that's all this is. If I select this and hit OK, that line goes away. So I can bring those trails in or out, just kind of depending on if you want to see them or not, right? So thank you for hanging with me and watching this video. Hopefully this was informative and you learned how to at least create an assembly as well as doing a drawing. If we wanted to create individual parts of these, that's just as simple as, you know, bringing in each one of those parts and then cutting the views and dimension it. So yeah, we might save a video for that for another time as we get more into doing some more drafting and other stuff in Inventor, right? So thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for, you know, always coming back and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for helping me grow. All right, until the next video.